You've spent 30 years building a nest egg, thinking the hardest part is over, but right now, there are silent savings killers targeting women in their 50s that have nothing to do with the stock market. They are hidden in your family dynamics, your safe choices, and your own empathy, and they are quietly draining your retirement dry while you sleep. If you don't identify these traps today, you might outlive your money by 20 years. Let's expose the truth. You settle into your favorite chair, maybe a cup of tea in hand, feeling like you've finally arrived. You're in your 50s. The kids are hopefully flying the coop, or at least driving themselves. You've established a career. Perhaps you've even managed to tuck away a decent nest egg. It feels like the home stretch, the golden runway where you can finally breathe and watch the balance on your statements climb. But there is a reason this specific decade is the most dangerous time for a woman's financial life. It's not because of market crashes or recessions. Those are loud, they are scary, but you see them coming. The real threats, the ones I call the silent savings killers, are quiet. They move in the shadows of your best intentions, wearing the disguise of responsibility and love. By the time you realize you've been tripped, the runway is gone, and the ground is rushing up to meet you. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden risks that are specifically targeting women over 50, the things nobody warns you about at dinner parties, and by the end of this, you're going to see your money in a completely different light. The first silent killer is what I call the sandwich generation squeeze, but not for the reason you think. We hear about caring for aging parents and supporting children, but the lethal part of this trap isn't the money you spend on them. It's the interruption of your compounding interest combined with a mom penalty that refuses to die. Let me paint a picture you might recognize. You're 52. Your mother falls and breaks a hip. Suddenly, you're taking Tuesdays and Thursdays off to drive her to appointments. Maybe it's not even that dramatic. Maybe you were just on the phone with insurance companies for 3 hours a week. Those hours don't seem like much, but at the peak of your earning potential, your 50s are supposed to be your highest earning years. You are stepping back. You aren't negotiating that raise because you need flexibility, not more money. You aren't maxing out your 401k because you're writing checks for your daughter's wedding or your son's graduate school rent. The trap here is the narrative that family comes first. Of course, family comes first, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. The silent killer is the slow, drip-by-drip erosion of your own security under the guise of being a good mother or a good daughter. The scary part? The statistics show that women who take career hits in their early 50s never recover the trajectory. You don't just lose the money for those years. You lose the momentum that carries you into a higher salary in your late 50s and early 60s. You are trading your future dignity for current convenience, and the bill comes due later than you expect. This leads directly into the second trap, the one that feels so responsible you'll be shocked I'm calling a killer. I call it the over-functioning parent. We have raised a generation of children who we desperately want to have a better life than we did, and in our 50s, we have the means to help them. But there's a fine line between helping and handicapping, and women in their 50s are crossing it in droves. You see it all the time. A 26-year-old living in a city they can't afford, with a lifestyle subsidized by mom and dad. You co-sign the lease. You pay the car insurance. You keep them on your cell phone plan. Why? Because you can. Because it makes you feel good to see them struggling less. But here is the brutal truth. Every dollar you spend propping up an adult child is a dollar that is not buying your freedom in retirement. And the math is cruel. You have a limited window of maybe 10 to 15 years to aggressively save before you stop working. Your child has 40 years to earn money. When you prioritize their comfort over your security, you are engaging in a financial suicide pact. And here is the suspenseful part that keeps me up at night. What happens to those children when you run out of money at 75? Who takes care of you then? The child you shielded from financial reality will not have the capacity to care for you. The trap is thinking you're doing them a favor. You're actually robbing them of a resourceful, independent parent in their future. Now, let's talk about something even more taboo, something that is whispered in book clubs but never shouted from the rooftops: the gray divorce. Divorce rates for people over 50 have doubled since 1990. For women, this is often a financial catastrophe of the highest order. But the trap isn't the legal fees or the division of assets. The trap is the emotional spending that follows. So many women in their 50s, fresh out of marriage, feel a desperate need to reinvent themselves, to prove they are happy, to prove they are desirable and free. They buy the condo they can't really afford because it's theirs. They travel. They upgrade the wardrobe. It's a don't worry, be happy mentality that masks a deep grief. But here is the math. Dividing a household in half doesn't just have your assets. It doubles your fixed expenses. You go from one mortgage, one electric bill, one insurance premium, to paying for two separate households. Inflation might be 4%, but divorce inflation is 100%. The silent killer here is the belief that you can maintain the lifestyle you had during the marriage on your new, single income. You cannot. The trap springs shut when the settlement money runs out, and you realize your earning power is waning just as your expenses have spiked. It is the perfect storm, and it happens because we let our emotions drive the bus while our wallet is tied to the bumper. If we survive the family squeeze, the overfunctioning, and the emotional fallout of divorce, we walk right into the most insidious trap of all. This one is psychological, and it is terrifying because it feels so safe. I call it the cash is king fallacy. As women enter their 50s, risk tolerance plummets. We watched 2008. We see the volatility. We get scared. So we pull money out of the market. We move it to CDs, to savings accounts, to money markets. We say, I just can't afford to lose this money. And that sounds smart, doesn't it? It sounds prudent. But it is a silent killer because of the one enemy you cannot see: inflation. If you have $500,000 in cash and you're earning 4% interest, but inflation is running at 7 or 8% on the things you actually buy, groceries, healthcare, insurance, you are not saving money. You are slowly bleeding to death. You are losing purchasing power every single day. And the kicker is, you won't know it's gone until you try to buy something 10 years from now and realize you can't afford it. This is the trap of the safe harbor. In your 50s, you cannot afford to be too safe. You need growth. You need your money to work as hard as you did. Playing it too safe is the riskiest move you can make because it guarantees you will not have enough. It's a slow leak in a lifeboat. You feel dry, you feel safe, but you are sinking nonetheless. Speaking of healthcare, let's talk about the gap. This is the silent killer nobody sees until they are standing in it. We all know about Medicare at 65. We plan for that. But what about the woman who retires at 60? Or the woman who gets laid off at 58 and can't find another job? There is a 5, maybe 7-year gap where you have to buy private insurance. Have you priced a private health plan for a woman in her early 60s recently? It is astronomical. It can easily cost $1,500 to $2,000 a month. That is $24,000 a year straight out of your savings before you even buy groceries. The trap is assuming that retirement age is a magic line you cross where everything is free. The transition period is where finances go to die. I have seen women with $500,000 in savings think they are fine to retire at 62, only to watch that money evaporate in 3 years because they didn't account for the cost of private insurance before Medicare kicks in. It is a hidden tax on aging, and it strikes right when you're most vulnerable. And then there is the trap of longevity risk, which sounds like a boring insurance term, but it is actually a terrifying prospect. Women live longer than men. It's a biological fact. We often live 5, 7, sometimes 10 years longer than our partners. The trap here is planning our finances based on a couple's life expectancy, or even worse, planning based on a man's life expectancy. If you're 55 today, there's a very high probability you will live to be 95. That is 40 years of funding you need to secure. Most retirement plans are built on a 30-year model. The silent killer is running out of money at 85. Imagine being an elderly woman unable to work with rising healthcare needs and an empty bank account. It is the nightmare scenario. But the trap is set in your 50s when you decide, oh, I'll just work until I'm 70. That sounds great, but the job market is brutal for women over 60. Layoffs happen. Health issues happen. Parents get sick. Relying on future income that hasn't been earned yet to fund a 40-year retirement is the gamble of a lifetime, and the house always wins. Now, here's the thing that ties all of these killers together. The reason they're silent, the reason they're so effective is because of how women are socialized to think about money. We are taught to be budgeters, not investors. We are taught to be savers, not earners. We are taught to sacrifice for others. We enter our 50s carrying an entire generation of financial baggage on our backs. We don't talk about it because it feels shameful to be struggling when we are supposed to be successful. We look at our friends and neighbors, and everyone seems fine. Everyone is posting vacation photos and renovation updates on social media. So we hide our panic. We pretend the house is in order. And while we are pretending, the silent killers are picking the lock. So how do we stop them? How do we wake up from the trance before it's too late? It starts with a ruthless audit of your reality. You have to look at your numbers. Not the numbers you hope for, but the numbers that are actually there. You have to look at your adult children and cut the cord if they're draining your resources. You have to look at your portfolio and demand that it grow, even if that feels scary. You have to look at your own career in your 50s and treat it like the gold mine it is. This is the decade to double down, to ask for the promotion, to start the side hustle, to monetize the experience you have spent a lifetime gathering. The trap of coasting in your 50s is deadly. This is the time to sprint. The most important thing you can do right now is to stop looking at your money as a tool to help everyone else and start looking at it as the fuel for your future self. Your 50-year-old self has a responsibility to your 80-year-old self. That is the only relationship that matters right now. When you are 80, you won't care if you helped your son pay for a fancy wedding in his 20s. You won't care if you bought the slightly bigger house. You will care if you can afford the heating bill. You will care if you can afford your medication. You will care if you are a burden to your children. We have to break the silence. We have to start talking about these risks in the open. The next time you're at lunch with your friends, ask them about their long-term care insurance. Ask them about their plan for the gap before Medicare. Ask them about their withdrawal rate. It might feel awkward, but it is the only way to shine a light on the shadows where these killers hide. Knowledge is the only weapon that works against the silent killers. Once you know the trap exists, you can step over it. You can navigate around it. But you have to be looking. You have more power than you think. You have built careers, raised families, managed households, and survived challenges that would have broken lesser people. You are not a victim of these financial traps unless you choose to close your eyes. The path forward requires you to be a little selfish, a little aggressive, and a lot more honest. It requires you to look at this safe path and realize it's actually a cliff edge. It requires you to look at your family and say, I love you, but I have to save myself first. That is not abandonment. That is leadership. As we wrap this up, I want you to do one thing. I want you to go to your calendar and make an appointment with yourself for this weekend. No kids, no spouse, no distractions. Just you and your financial statements. Print them out. Look at them. Ask yourself the hard questions. If I lose my job tomorrow, how long do I have? If the market drops 20%, do I panic? If I live to be 95, does the money run out? If you don't like the answers, do not look away. That is the moment the trap is sprung. That is the moment you fight back. You have time. Maybe not as much time as you had in your 30s, but you have enough time to change the outcome if you start right now. The silent killers rely on your silence. They rely on your fear. Don't give it to them. Take control, speak up, and secure the freedom you have worked so hard to earn. Because the only thing worse than outliving your money is realizing you gave it all away, bit by bit, to things that didn't matter, while the things that did, your security, your peace of mind, your future, slipped through your fingers. The story of your financial life isn't over yet. It's time to write a chapter where you are the protagonist, where you are the victor, and where the silent killers don't stand a chance.